Hi guys, we are back to do another read aloud, and the votes are in. An overwhelming number of students chose the book The Menagerie, which is a pretty fancy word, and it's probably not one that we use very often or hear very often. So I thought I was going to share with you guys first what a menagerie is. So I went on the dictionary for you guys to get you just a simple explanation of what a menagerie is. And it's pretty much a place where animals are kept and trained, especially for exhibition. So if you see animals that maybe are that do shows or are maybe in the zoo, those are animals that are used for exhibition. They're being shown to people. So a menagerie is just a place where animals are kept and they are usually trained maybe to do something, how to behave, how to do tricks. So that is the chapter book that we are going to go with. I'm going to read to you guys chapter 1, and then we will continue going forward. I hope you enjoy the book. I've never read this book before. I've never even heard of it before. So, good choice. Okay, let's look. To start, they give us a map, and I don't think I can zoom in too well, but it looks like it's how the menagerie, the place where animals are kept, how they're broken up. Uh, and it looks like it has some pretty interesting creatures. I see something. I see unicorns, which you guys know I love. Um, they, sorry guys, they have a phoenix, an area where the phoenix are kept. Phoenix is a very special type of bird. Sometimes it's considered a magical or mythical bird. Yeti, the Yeti Highlands. They have mammoths, a reptile house, and they even have an animal called hellhounds. So I'm really interested to see what kind of animals are being kept at this menagerie. And I am going to start with chapter 1. Logan Wilde noticed the feathers as soon as he woke up. There were 5 of them scattered across his gray carpet like autumn leaves. Logan stared at them, rubbing his eyes, as his third backup alarm clock went off. It seems like Logan has a hard time getting up in the morning. He climbed out of bed and picked one up. It was huge, and in the sunlight it glowed as if it were sprinkled with gold dust, bright against the pale brown of his palm. He tried to remember if anything weird had happened last night, such as, say, a giant golden bird flapping through his room. The problem was that he was a really, really deep sleeper. His dad joked that he could set off a car alarm besides Logan's head without waking him up. Are any of you guys deep sleepers where it's really hard for your parents to wake you up? Like loud noises or storms, you can sleep right through it. I know I'm not a deep sleeper. I usually wake up with most sounds. Some people are deep sleepers. Huh? Logan said. Do I want to know what happened to the rest of this bird Persimmon? He turned and noticed that his cat wasn't lounging sleepily across the bottom of his bed where he could usually find her. Purrs! He called. A movement on Logan's desk caught his eye. Warrior, his Siamese fighting fish, was swimming frantically back and forth, swishing his long purple fins. The terrarium next to the fishbowl looked empty. Logan crossed over to it and peered in. Normally, his 2 pet mice, sorry guys, ran up to the glass when they saw him, hoping for food. But today, Mr. and Mrs. Smith were huddled in a corner under a pile of wood shavings. They refused to come out even when he shook their food canister at them. What the heck is going on? Logan asked. Row, said a small voice from inside the closet. Logan pulled open the door and found his cat hiding on the top shelf behind a pile of sweaters. Her gray and white fur was standing on end, and she gave him a wild-eyed look. Aw, what happened? Logan joked. Did a big bird fly in here and scare you? Ow! She grumbled. Her baleful glare said, Well, you clearly weren't going to wake up and save us. Go ahead, snore away while I get eaten. I'm sure your tears at my funeral will be very heartfelt. Logan spotted long threads of blue, green, and red yarn tangled through her claws and realized that Persimmon had spent the night anxiously shredding his sweaters. Oh man, Logan said. Thanks a lot, Pers. Wow, she protested indignantly. He reached for her, but she flattened her ears and took a flying leap over his head. Sorry guys, let's switch sides. He spun around in time to see her tail disappearing out of the open window. Logan sighed. Someday I'll have a dog, he told his fish. One that won't run away in a panic over every little thing. Warrior flapped his fins at Logan as if he were saying, Hey, I'm on the cat's side here. Logan got dressed, picked up the note and lunch money his dad had left him for the kitchen, and hurried out the door, grabbing a Pop-Tart to eat on the way to school. It never occurred to him that his nighttime visitor might not have left. Xanadu, Wyoming was a small, sleepy town surrounded by mountains. It was not the kind of place Logan had ever expected to live, but then he'd also never expected his mom to ditch them via postcard, or his dad to quit his fancy lawyer job to move west and search for her. Look at this place, Dad, Logan said that summer as their U-Haul bumped past what appeared to be an actual saloon with a pair of longhorns burned into a wooden sign. It's like the opposite of Chicago. Does this mean I can have a horse? I bet everyone here has a horse. Sure you can have a horse, his dad answered, the day you go to school wearing a cowboy hat, chaps, and spurs. Dad thought he was pretty hilarious. Logan wasn't nearly brave enough for a cowboy hat, never mind anything else. Certainly not as the new kid in 7th grade. It would be pretty cool to ride a horse the 10 minutes to school instead of his bike, though. Logan coasted down a hill, steering around the potholes. He still missed the deep dish pizza smell that hung around his block in Chicago, but he didn't miss most of the other smells of the city. The air here smelled like pine trees and faraway snow. At the bottom of the hill, his bike zipped past the Xanadu Savings Bank. He spotted a cluster of people in suits on the front steps. He didn't have time to stop, but out of the corner of his eye, it looked as if the front door had been shredded like grated cheese. No way, I must have seen that wrong. Logan shook his head and kept pedaling. Logan liked Wyoming better than Chicago so far, even if he hadn't made any real friends yet. People actually did ride horses down the main streets sometimes, and the town newsletter was printed, not online, in an old-timey font like a wanted, dead or alive outlaw poster. In Wyoming, Logan had an actual yard. Well, a strip of grass around the patio of their ranch house, which meant there was hope that one day he could have a dog. The best part was that his dad let him bike around alone. Sorry, guys. Plus, there weren't memories of his mom, waiting to ambush him everywhere he looked. He couldn't imagine why his dad thought he'd find her anywhere nearby. Sorry. Xanadu was way too dull for her. There wasn't even an airport within 50 miles. Logan didn't mind the quiet, but his mom would have lost her mind the first week. He rounded the corner and nearly crashed into a trio of kids standing in the middle of the road arguing. Ah! He shouted, steering wildly as two of the kids scattered. His bike rammed into the curb and sent him sprawling into a pile of raked orange leaves on someone's lawn. Watch where you're going, a girl's voice yelled. Me? Logan said, sitting up. You're the one standing in the street. His elbow ached and his palms were scraped. He could feel a thin trickle of blood sliding down his shin. He unclipped his bike helmet and leaned over to roll up his pants. The girl who had yelled at him was standing on the road, glaring. She was the only one who hadn't tried to move out of the way. Her dark hair hung down in two long braids. He realized he'd noticed her before, yelling at another sixth-grade girl on the soccer field, but he didn't know her name. The other two were in his seventh-grade class. "Whoa," said the guy, squinting at Logan's bleeding knee. "Sorry about that." Blue Menagerie was tall and blonde and sleepy looking. Girls were always smiling at him and hanging around wherever he was. Logan wasn't sure why, although it probably had something to do with his green eyes and the really slow way he talked. "It's all right," Logan said. He glanced at the other girl, Zoe Kahn, the weirdest person in seventh grade. Her chin-length red-brown hair was tucked behind her ears, and her green flannel shirt was buttoned wrong. She was staring across the street at the post office, frowning. "Kiko," she said, as if Logan wasn't there. "Come on, please. We need your help." "No way," Kiko said, tossing her braids back. "Stupid thing will probably bite me if it sees me. This is your problem. I'm staying out of it." She narrowed her gold brown eyes at Logan and then whirled around and stomped off towards school. "We're going to be late," Blue pointed out. "But we have to check," Zoe said desperately. "What if he's gone by lunchtime?" "It'll be all right," Blue said, lowering his voice. Logan felt like he was intruding. He climbed to his feet and was about to slink off, but then he glanced at Zoe's face again and noticed she was on the verge of tears. Even Blue looked kind of stressed, which was not a normal Blue expression at all. He'd feel like a jerk if he walked away without asking if he could help. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, it's nothing," Zoe said, wiping her eyes. "You sure?" he asked. Is there anything I can do?" Zoe met his gaze for the first time, as if she'd finally realized he was there. "Oh, thanks," she said, "but no, it's okay. It's just my dog is missing." "Oh no," Logan said. "What kind of dog? How long has he been gone? What's his name? Did you check the shelter? I can help you make flyers if you want. Is he microchipped? Has he run away before?" He stopped. Blue and Zoe were both giving him very strange looks. He said, "I like dogs, that's all." "Don't worry about it," Zoe said. She gave him a tired smile. "But thanks." The warning bell rang in the schoolyard. "We'd better go, quick," Zoe said to Blue. She dashed across the street and disappeared into the post office. Logan noticed a few feathers scattered across the big stone steps. Enormous feathers, like the ones in his room, only these were dark brown instead of gold. "Why would her dog be in there?" Logan asked. Uh, he really loves mailmen," Blue shrugged. "He's kind of a weird dog." "What's his name?" Blue's forehead furrowed thoughtfully. Six? No, Finn. Nah, let's go with Six. See ya." He turned to follow Zoe before Logan could ask any more questions, such as, "Did you just really obviously make that up?" Logan sighed as Blue disappeared through the post office doors. This was why he still didn't have any friends 4 months after moving to Xanadu. It wasn't only that he was totally awkward when he tried to talk to people, and it wasn't that he looked different from almost everyone here. Walter Barnes, the other African-American guy in the class, was a mega popular football star with an 8th grade girlfriend. The truth was, the kids here already had their set groups of friends. There were only 24 students in the whole 7th grade, 10 boys, 14 girls, and all of them were impossible to get to know. The first week he had tried sitting with Walter at lunch, but Walter had ignored him, talking to his football buddies and acting as if his lasagna was far more interesting than Logan. He didn't seem to care about the Bulls or the Cubs or how many games Logan had gone to in Chicago. Logan had tried a different table of guys next week, hoping that he'd have better luck with the band guys than the jocks, since he was a decent saxophone player. But when he brought up Charlie Parker, he got blank stares. Nobody liked the same things he did. None of them have ever watched Mythbusters or The Amazing Race. As for Siamese fighting fish, he might as well have said he kept a small, boring alien in a fishbowl on his desk. They spent most of lunch quoting old South Park episodes to one another, which was a show Logan's dad wouldn't let him watch. After that, Logan kept sitting at the same table, but he stopped trying to participate in conversations. Basically, it was hopeless, but his friends back in Chicago hadn't been that awesome either. They all said cheesy, unhelpful things when his mom left, and then didn't want to talk about it. And from their 2-sentence emails, it sounded like he was lucky to be missing all of the middle school drama of who liked whom and who was sending around embarrassing pictures of whom. Here, he might be invisible, but at least he wasn't in everyone's inbox squirting grape juice out of his nose. He slouched into homeroom and drew feathers on the inside of his notebook until the bell rang. Mr. Christopher was just starting to take attendance when Zoe and Blue were escorted through the door by an irate guidance counselor. "These two were playing hooky," Miss McCaffrey announced, then paused dramatically before adding, "in the post office," as if it made it much more worse. "Ooh," said Jasmine Sterling from the back of the room. "Zoe and Blue sending each other love letters. That's so cute." Blue's mellow expression didn't change, but Zoe shot her a withering look. Everybody, even Logan, knew that Jasmine was the one with the world's biggest crush on Blue. Zoe and Blue acted more like brother and sister, at least as far as he could tell. The overhead loudspeaker crackled. "Miss McCaffrey," said the disembodied voice of the principal, "please report to the cafeteria. We have a situation." Zoe gave Blue a frantic look as the guidance counselor went out the door. Logan saw Blue shake his head a tiny bit and nudge her towards her seat. Zoe slid into the chair beside Logan, running her hands anxiously through her hair. She dropped her backpack on the floor between her desk and Logan's. He wondered if she knew how peculiar her bag smelled. It was as if wet dogs and hippos had been wrestling on it. He glanced down and saw a couple of brown hairs stuck in the zipper. They were too long and dark to be Zoe's. Her hair was more reddish and barely reached her chin, so they must belong to her dog, which meant he was shaggy with a bizarre odor. Well, he'd rather have a dog with a bizarre odor than no dog. Logan tried to think, what kind of dog would have fur like that? A Saint Bernard? Blue's desk was in front of Logan's. His thick blonde hair had a slight greenish tint to it that Logan had only noticed because the back of Blue's head was right in front of him all day long. He also had an odd smell, like the sea, as if he spent most of his of the day surfing, although there weren't any beaches for hundreds of miles. Mr. Christopher turned to the blackboard and began writing out a math problem. A crumpled ball of paper zipped past Logan's nose and bonked Blue on the back of the head. Blue and Logan both turned to Zoe at the same time. "We have to get to the cafeteria," she whispered, ignoring Logan. Blue nodded at Mr. Christopher's back. "But we have class." Zoe rubbed her thin wrist. "This is more important. You know what Snappa will do if I don't find..." She stopped and glanced at Logan. "What's Snapple got to do with your dog?" he asked. She said. "Nothing. I didn't say that. We need to know what's happening," she whispered to Blue. Sounded frustrated. "He won't let you go," Blue said, shaking his head. "Or me. Not after we were late like that." Logan knew that if it was his dog, he'd be just as desperate as Zoe sounded right now. For his own dog, he'd do anything to get it back. I'll go, he whispered, raising his hand. And that is the end of chapter 1. I think you guys picked a great book. I'm very interested to see what Zoe's dog is doing and what is this um, weird bird that has left feathers in Logan's room. And will Logan ever make friends with people? I can't wait to read the next chapter with you guys. I will hopefully get to read that for you on Monday. But again, I hope you enjoyed chapter 1 of the Menagerie. If you guys want to leave a comment about what you thought of the first chapter, feel free to do it in our classroom. I hope you all have an excellent weekend, and I will talk to you later. Bye!